Hey guys, welcome to another episode of BrainSpark.com. Today I'm sitting here with someone who's done it all. I mean, this guy has worked as a marriage and family counselor, university teacher, he's been a therapist, trainer, a consultant, he's an author. There's hardly anything left for him to do that he hasn't already done, and I'm really happy to have him here today because from what I've learned from him already, from listening to other interviews he's done and just reading his website, I'm really excited to see what he has to share with us today. My guest is Joe Bailey, and Joe, thank you very much for being here today with us today.
You're very welcome, TJ. It's good to be with you.
Thank you. So, I mean, you have a huge background. You've got lots of experience working in different fields. How did you end up doing what you're doing? What's your story?
Well, I think, like a lot of people, it was really two reasons. One, I was pretty much on the search myself, just for my own well-being and happiness. When I was young, when I was in my adolescence and early adulthood, I was very stressed, very anxious, was very driven to succeed, to try to understand what life was really all about. And so I pursued many different courses of study, and kind of finally ended up becoming a clinical psychologist. But I, worked in religious background a little bit, thinking of a life of service. But bottom line, I just wanted to help other people and help myself to become happier. So I got into psychology, and lo and behold, it wasn't much about mental health or happiness. It was all about what's wrong with people and what's broken, and analyzing and studying all the ways that people can be unhappy, which is an infinite list, from addictions to mental health issues to just stress and overwhelm, just general unhappiness. And so I didn't really learn much about mental health in the mental health field. And so the more I learned about psychology and the more I got into it as a counselor, young counselor in my 20s, the more serious I became, the more analytical, and I was constantly analyzing myself and analyzing other people. And I knew there had to be a better way. I mean, it felt like it was like I wanted to be a high-performance athlete, and I was studying all the ways I could screw up as an athlete instead of learning how to really be in shape and really be at high performance. So I began to pursue other studies, from studying Eastern religions and thought and meditation to humanistic psychologies, just anything that I could, nutrition, diet, exercise. I was interested in understanding what health was. And one of my early jobs was to be the director of prevention for the state of Texas. And that was to prevent mental health and substance abuse issues. And it was a field that was in its infancy. But it took me, I look at my career and I could see it was kind of like this following the breadcrumbs that took me in many different directions, but ultimately led me to the three principles. By the time I was 33, I was pretty burned out. I'd already been a therapist for 10 years, and I was ready to quit being a therapist and find something else that was more positive. And then I met Sydney Banks when I was 33, and as a result of my best friend recommending that I come here and speak. And it just totally, completely changed the whole way I saw life. It was like a 180. I felt like I had been looking through the wrong end of a telescope my entire life. And I couldn't figure out why everything was so hard to see.
Right.
And when Sid said, turn the telescope around and look at it the other way, it was like everything suddenly became much more clear, because I began to see how my experience, my emotions, my perceptions, my experience of life was coming from the inside out, more like a projector rather than the outside in, more like a camera. So I was actually, there is reality. There is a physical reality. You're actually sitting there in Oslo, Norway, and I'm here in St. Paul, Minnesota, and we're looking at it through our computer screen.
Right.
But I can't experience you without my mind, without my power of thought and consciousness. So what Sid discovered was really the constants behind the human experience. And once you understand that, that's kind of the cornerstone of the science of psychology and psychiatry. And that's what's been missing. And so when we didn't have that foundation of fundamental constant principles, we created lots of different theories and lots of different ways of looking at how to help people. And they were all well-meaning, and a lot of things that I did actually helped people in spite of what I was doing, because I cared about people. And I really was devoted to helping people. But my own journey, it really, that was like a turning point in my life. At age 33, I then actually felt like I began my career as a helper, as a counselor, as a teacher, because I actually had something to share with people. And my clients said when I came back from meeting Sydney Banks, said, "Well, why didn't you tell us this before? This is so simple." And so I feel really fortunate, TJ, and lucky that I got to discover this as young as I did, and have had a whole career of teaching this in to corporations, to hospitals, to addiction clients and mental health clients, couples, families. You know, as you said, university students, and worked in the medical school at the University of Minnesota, many different things. Because when people kind of begin to see the simplicity of how we are always in the moment, creating our perceptions, our feelings, our experience through the power of thought, it really turns our world inside out and upside down. And we began to feel more free, more in control in a sense, but not in control. But we don't feel so at the mercy of all of these forces out that seem to be driving us crazy or making us feel rushed or out of time. So that's what my life's about.
That's a very interesting story. Now, you said something that I really enjoyed, right? Just a few seconds ago, you said it helps us feel free. And I mean, we've had people on here before who were talking about the three principles. We've had several of them on, and everyone has, of course, the same basic foundation for it, but everyone has a different way of expressing their thoughts and what they do. And to me, it seems like a lot of what you do is geared towards helping people create, the life that they want, whether that's fighting addiction or the relationships they have or their just overall success or whatever it is. So what would you say is your goal when you work with clients? Like, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to teach them the three principles, or are you trying to show them how to change their lives the way they want, or what's your end game?
Yeah, that's a great question, TJ. I guess there's really, last week I was speaking to the staff of the treatment center that I consult with in Florida, and I said, I was just saying, if we just bring it back to the one simple point, the one singular point of what the principles point to, and we get that point across to our clients, when they leave treatment, they will be leaving with something that they'll carry with them the rest of their life. And that one thing is understanding that whatever you're going through in life, whether it's a relationship problem or wondering what should I do as a career, or being stressed in your job, or overwhelmed with your family life and raising kids, or whatever it is that you're involved in, that we're really always up against just one thing, which is our thinking in the moment. It's so simple, but the constant is that we're always thinking. You're never not thinking. Even when you're sleeping, you're thinking. If you're alive, you're thinking. So that's a principle. It's a constant. But what we're thinking constantly changes. So the content of what we're thinking will come to life through the power of the second principle, consciousness, which will take that thought and turn it into a theological experience, a sensation, which is an emotion, a feeling, which automatically turns into sensory experience, what we hear, what we focus on, whatever it is that we're thinking will create how we see and experience what our life is giving us. And when we wake up and remember that our experience is coming from us rather than from out there, that frees us up. That lets us out of the prison of thought that so many of us lived in, and I've lived in much of my life, half of my life. I felt like I was always battling all of these challenges and things, and proving myself, and trying to do the best I could. But I was caught in my own treadmill or gerbil wheel of chasing after success, chasing after a relationship, of meaning, a feeling of purpose, and all I was really doing was creating my unhappiness through misusing my thinking. And once I saw that principle as an insight, it just started to calm me down. I just felt, it's like waking up from a nightmare. If you're in the middle of a nightmare and you wake up and the sheets are all wet, you're just, all the bed's torn up, and you've been being chased by a robber or something, and you wake up and you go, oh my God, thank God it was just a nightmare. You begin to calm down. You begin to relax. And it's the same thing when you're having a daymare, when you're caught up in worry or obsessing about something, or ruminating over the future or the past, and all of a sudden you wake up and you realize it's just my thinking. I mean, it can sound so simple, but it's so freeing when you see thought in the moment. It clears your mind, and that makes room for new thinking, or what we call insight. And when you have insight, the more you live in a state of insight, the more resilient you are, the more creative you are, the more joy you experience, a natural state of happiness. You're intrinsically motivated. Your locus of control is not out there, but within. So you feel empowered. You feel a sense of confidence and self-esteem. But we go in and out of that.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
still go in and out of that every day. I get caught up in my thinking, and I forget. We kind of hypnotize ourselves unknowingly and innocently with our own thought system, and we think that some external force is making us feel this way.
And it's very easy to do, and it seems that a lot of people do that. So I want to try to let's create a scenario, a hypothetical scenario, and see how this applies to it. Let's say that one of the people watching this has always wanted to travel the world and work from his or her computer. They want to go out and do something, or maybe move to a new country or something like that. And this is like a big dream and a big fantasy that they have. But they worry about, what if I don't make enough money? My job's not online. What if I fail? What will people say if I quit my job and go do that? What happens if I have to, come? They have all this thinking going on that's making them uncomfortable and scared of doing, following their dream. Faced with someone like this, what would you do? How would you approach that problem to help them figure it out?
Well, what I tell people is like, when you're, let's say as an athlete, you, let's say tennis or golf. When you understand the game, the basics of the game, and then you clear your head is clear, you're in the zone, and you go to hit the ball, you're not really having to think about it in an intellectual way. You're more instinctually hitting the ball. And the more you get in your head about what you're doing, the more you miss the ball or miss the ball. Right. And it's the same thing with following your dreams. When when you think about, we all have this source of inspiration, this wisdom in us that kind of lets us know the next step, our direction, our purpose in life. And you can call listening to your heart, listening to your inner voice. But when we when we hear that, and then we start second guessing it, like, well, yeah, but what do people think if I actually do what I want to do, or what would people think if I quit my job, or what if I don't have enough money? What if I get there and nothing happens? And so when we're following our dreams and we're listening to that train of thought, we feel inspired, we feel lighter hearted, we feel hopeful, optimistic. We start seeing all kinds of possibilities and being energized to move in that direction, and maybe do searches on the internet, or we think of calling a person who did what you want to do, and you brainstorm with them. So things come to your mind naturally that would take you in that direction. But when you go into this outside-in mode, this mode of being caught up in your habits of thinking, your insecure habits of thinking, it feels very differently. So your feelings are like a guidance system, almost like a Geiger counter, that when your Geiger counter is going over here in the negative, and you start worrying, obsessing, scaring yourself, imagining scenarios of the future that don't work out so well, wondering what people are going to think, you're going to have an experience, a sensation that's not going to feel so good. It's going to have more of a negative feeling to it. And when you're moving in the direction of following your dreams and your aspirations, your inspirations, there's a lightness and an inspiration that comes with it. And again, we go back and forth. So when I'm over here, like just last week, I'm in the middle of writing another book for healthcare providers, and I got some major news on Monday of last week that things were not going to go the way I thought they were going to go. The person I was going to be doing it with pulled out of the project, and immediately I went over here and I started feeling let down, disappointed. Oh, it's not going the way I thought it was going to go. Now what am I going to do? And I was starting to spiral down. Now, having that experience and knowing what I know about principles, I was like observing myself going through this. I knew this is going to pass. You're just, of course, it's understandable. You have that disappointment. But you don't want to act on that. You don't want to do anything about it. You don't want to send back an email. You don't want to act on that because you're not in your clearest thinking. So I just waited. A couple hours later, I read the letter or the email again that was freaking me out 2 hours before, and it looked like a completely different email.
Right.
I could see the truth of what this person was saying. It made total sense, and I thought, oh, this will be fine. I called my editor at my publisher house. He said, this isn't a roadblock. This is a wrinkle. And so my actions from that point forward led me to positive actions that were helpful, that helped me deal with that curveball that I pitched.
Right. So
just recognizing the feeling helped me to not act on those thoughts, to know when I was imbalanced. And it's much like a baseball player. I don't know if they play baseball in Norway.
Not really, no. But we know it. It's on TV.
Yeah, so when a batter gets up to bat, if their head gets too busy, they step out of the batter's box and clear their head and maybe do some rituals and wait till their head is clear because they know they'll never be able to hit the ball if their mind isn't clear. So in a sense, I stepped out of the batter's box and I just waited until my feelings calmed down. I had more mental clarity. I could see the situation more from that clarity, that Jamie Smart talks about, that wisdom that Sydney Banks talked about, that common sense. And so when we realize that we have this perfect system built into us to let us know when to really act on our thinking and when not to. Now, it doesn't mean that that there aren't times when you have like fear or you do have real negativity going on in your life. You're sick. You need to go to a doctor. You don't just deny any of that.
Right.
You listen to that, or if you really are in danger, you get out of the way. You jump off the street so you don't get hit. You don't just say, "Oh, it's just my thinking." It's not that, but you just remove the unnecessary thinking by recognizing that it is thought and it's coming from your mind, and that automatically brings you back to this more resilient mind, this more creative, intelligent mind that is your birthright and my birthright.
Right. So for someone in a situation like that or any similar situation like that, what you're saying is when you're feeling stressed out, when you have all these negative thoughts, that taking a step back and waiting until you're in touch with your desire and what you really want will help you make better decisions and what will help you deal with any challenges that this dream might have in a much better way. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's just a kind of almost a gentle recognition. It's a gentle awareness. You don't have to figure out, well, why am I thinking this way, or how long have I been thinking this way, or what's the matter with me that I'm thinking too much, or you don't have to do any more than just recognize, and kind of wake up from the dream. You don't have to go back in and analyze your dream. You just wake up, you're in a different state of consciousness, and trust that from that awakened state of consciousness, you're going to get better thinking. And after 35 years of doing this, I can say with absolute certainty and confidence, whenever I do that, I always get better thinking.
Right.
And whenever I keep driving this thinking over here, it always gets worse, and nothing good comes of it. So it doesn't mean that we still don't have all those memories still in the brain. Those habitual patterns are still there, like my pattern of worry and fear that has been with me my whole life. When I get in a off-balance state of mind, that's where I usually go.
And you don't just work with people, normal people with stuff like this, but you've done some serious work with addicts and stuff that, like people that are really deep into, trouble and have a lot of habitual thinking that's really hard, I would assume, to break out of. So what's it like to work with people who's in that kind of situation where it's such a big problem in their life that it's basically ruining their life? How do you deal with that?
Well, there's a lot of just common sense things that you do. I work with people who are addicted to heroin or, serious drugs or even alcohol. Our treatment centers, we have a really good detoxification program. We first take care of the physical addiction. Help the person detoxify in a safe way through medication, we use sauna therapy. We help people cleanse their body of the chemicals until they're stabilized physically and they can actually begin to think more clearly. And then we educate them about how the mind works, because then we also let them know that they're not broken, they're not damaged, that there's a core of health that's in each of us that cannot be damaged, it can't be destroyed, and it's always resiliently there waiting to be reawakened. So we treat them as healthy people rather than as sick people, but we deal with their illness as well. We educate them about addiction, but we mostly educate them about, because people become addicted because they're looking for a different feeling than the one they're in. They're trying to feel connected to other people. They're trying not to feel so anxious. They're trying to feel happy. And so they get high, they get drunk, they overindulge in whatever addiction they might have because they're trying to find a state of mind. And what addicts tell me after they've learned the principles and gone through this type of treatment is other treatments. They say, I've been through many other treatments and all they do is tell me why I became an alcoholic or why I became a drug addict, and they tell me not to do it and go to meetings and control it and always remember I'm an addict. But what I learned here is how to live the kind of life I always wanted to live, how to actually be happy, how to actually find the serenity, the wholeness, the love, the tranquility that I sought through chemicals. And so, and we do that in lots of different ways. Listening to other people's stories who've gone through addiction and have found their way out through an insight. We do that through individual counseling, through group counseling, through recreational therapy, through just lots of different methods in a sense, but always coming back to the same point, and that point being that we are the creators of our experience through the power of mind, which is this infinite source of creative new thought and intelligence, the energy of life that we're always thinking, and thought is a gift that we create our experience of life with, and consciousness is what makes that thought appear as reality. Without those principles, we wouldn't experience life. So that's when I got an email just 2 days ago from a guy in Akron, Ohio. And Akron, Ohio was where Alcoholics Anonymous began back in 1930 or so, back in the 30s. I suppose they have AA in Norway, and it's everywhere in the world. And he has been in recovery for 5 years from alcoholism and drug addiction. And he said he no longer struggles with alcohol or drugs. He's not worried about relapsing. He said because he found something that was better than the alcohol, that was better than the drugs, and it was a natural feeling that was in him all along. And then he read my book, The Serenity Principle, which was the book I wrote about addiction. And he said it explained exactly what happened to me. I just woke up to who I am, and I began to see that my problem wasn't drugs or alcohol. My problem was that I didn't know how to find the happiness that I was seeking. And once I discovered that, it all made sense. So this approach to addiction, it's so simple and it's so practical, and it doesn't just help you with your problem with addiction. Once people learn this, it helps them in their relationships. It helps them with their anxieties. It helps them with finally finding the career they want, the relationship, because they're operating from a healthy system rather than an unhealthy system.
Right. And it sounds to me like you're not, different from a lot of other treatments, you're not treating the symptoms. You're actually treating the underlying cause of the problem, which is not addiction in itself, but the reason why the addiction, as you said, they're searching for a feeling or an experience or something that they're getting from these chemicals. And by treating the underlying cause, the symptom just goes away by itself. So that sounds like something that might be important for people who are not in such a dire situation, but everyday people, to kind of take into account that a lot of the stuff that we do and a lot of the stuff that's holding us back, or that we're doing that we don't really want to do, or that we're doing, we're hoarding money to try to feel happy, or we're doing all these things that a lot of people think
we're spending money to be happy.
Yeah, or spending more, even so. And doing that, we're trying to manage symptoms, or we're trying to create the symptoms that we want, instead of taking a step back and actually looking at, what's actually missing, or what is it that I'm actually trying to achieve, and realizing that it's not out there, but as you said, it's something that you're born with, and that's your birthright.
What I've found, TJ, over the last 3 or 4 decades, being a student of this, is the less I do to make it happen, make my happiness happen, make my life feel complete, fulfilled, the less I do to try to make that happen, the more I allow it to happen. So for me, it's not about trying to learn better ways to think or, be more positive or be more optimistic. Um, when we remove all the thinking that really isn't us, what's left is this resilient way of thinking that we're so capable of thinking so insightfully and creatively. But it's our own, can we worried and how am I doing? We get self-conscious and we over-engage our intellect. We end up getting in our own way. And so if I think too much about what I'm saying to you right now, I would get all balled up.
Right.
If I was playing tennis and I started thinking about, am I going to win or not, I would get in the way of my performance. If I'm thinking about trying to find the perfect woman to marry or the right relationship to be in, all that effort is actually going to create almost a lack of attraction, and it's going to get in my own way. It's just really learning to be our natural self, and and there's nothing you can really learn about that. It's getting out of the way of that, and it's really becoming ourself, our true self.
And so how do people, people watching this and maybe they don't know the three principles, maybe they've seen some of the other videos on this site, but they haven't really looked into it, they haven't started doing this. What would you say, how can they start out to get a sense of this and actually have the experience of it in their life to start, benefiting from it?
Well, I think there's many ways that you can do that. There are lots of websites, and you may have resources on your site, TJ, to direct people to, but there are many very good websites. threeprinciplesmovies.com out of London has a lot of videos that talk about how this understanding of these principles has been applied in a variety of settings, from corporate settings to athletics to relationships to addiction, mental health issues, just the general topic of stress, just community change, diplomacy. There's infinite applications of it. So that's a good, and there are many books that have been written about this. I've written 5 books about it. There are many other, there's a great new book out called Instant Motivation by Chantal Burns. I don't know if you should have her on your show.
I've heard of her several times now, so I'm going to have to look into that,
Yeah. She just has a new book out, not that within the last year, that's a bestseller in England and I think Russia and many other countries, and it's an excellent book. So there are many books, there's many videos. On my website, joebailey&associates.com, I have lots of videos on many different topics, and I have a list of resources under my resource section that you can find out.
We're going to link to that site under this video for those watching, that you just click the link. That's great. Now, there's a lot of stuff. Obviously, we could talk this for ages, and you've written about it a lot, and there's a lot of stuff out there on it. But for those that are still trying to get a grip on the inside-out thing, because we've had several people talk about it, and I'm still getting emails from people every now and then going, this sounds really interesting, but I'm not sure I get it. Yeah. Could you try to kind of sum up, what does the inside-out, mean? What is the core of it?
Let me grab something here.
Uh-huh.
Can you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. That looks good.
Okay. So this is a diagram that Dr. Keith Blevins and his wife, Bella Monroe, came up with a while back. And at the top it says, where do you think your feelings are coming from in the moment? And so very simply, when we're inside out, we're actually seeing how the system works. We're seeing how reality is being created from the inside out. That what I'm always experiencing, let's say, if I'm in the room with you or we're out hanging out in Oslo, you're showing me the sights of the city. However you're acting, however, whatever happens on our little journey is being brought to me moment to moment by how I'm thinking. And that's creating my perceptions, how it looks, and how I feel about it. And that's happening 24/7. We're always doing that. But sometimes we forget that. We're not aware of it. We're not conscious of it. And it looks like our feelings are coming from somewhere other than how I'm thinking in this moment. And we might think, oh God, it's such a dreary day today. This is going to be awful. I hate this kind of weather. Oh God. Another day, it could be exactly the same weather, and you think, oh, this is great. It's a cloudy day. I really need some downtime. I'm going to just sit at home and read a book.
Right.
And then the next day it's cloudy. You're back to thinking, oh, it's so dreary and miserable. And it might even change moment to moment. But moment to moment, you're either realizing the source of that experience is coming from inside, you're thinking in the moment, or it looks like it's out there. So the projection of your thought to the outside world makes the outside world look like it has all the power. And when you see that nothing can make you feel anything except you're thinking in the moment, then you're empowered. You feel free. You feel that if you don't like your thinking, it'll pass. This cloud will pass, and I'll have another thought. And so, and what I told you about in my own experience last week, I was in a thought storm. I was like, oh no, this is awful. This can't be. Why is this happening? Blah, blah, blah. But I knew I was creating it. It wasn't the circumstance that was creating this. And I knew that I would come back into a state of balance on the inside out. And once I had that perspective, I can handle anything. I know that I don't really need to worry about the future anymore. Whatever the future brings, I know I'm prepared.
Right.
I'll have an insight in the moment that will help me see what to do in any given situation. Now, it's taken a while for me to really see that that's always true, 100% of the time. In the beginning, it seemed like luck of the draw, my fate. Now I see, no, it's always true that however I'm thinking about it is what I'm going to be experiencing. And the more I see that, the more motivated I am, the more successful I am, the more enjoyable life is, the luckier I seem to get. It's just weird. It's just, wow, I wish I knew this when I was a little kid. I probably did know when I was a little kid, and I forgot it. So I don't know if that answered your question.
I think it's very helpful. I mean, I've looked in this direction for a while now, and I really enjoy everything I discover. I know a lot of people are curious, and a lot of people are asking for new ways to understand it, and I think this was definitely a great way to explain it that kind of made it very tangible, at least to me. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, good.
All right, I think that's a good place to wrap up. Now, we're going to put your website and everything on the page, of course, so people can check it out. Is there anything else that people should be doing to explore this, or is there anything else that you have that they should be checking out?
As you said, I've written several books. The last book I wrote was called Fear-Proof Your Life, which just deals with the epidemic of fear in our world today. There's just so much fear of terrorism, and the economy, and what's happening in Greece and the Middle East, and et cetera, et cetera. And so I wrote that book to help people get a psychological immunity to the barrage of fear-mongering that's going on in the world because it's a way to manipulate people.
Right.
And so that's one resource. People who might have an addiction problem, the Serenity Principle. One of my best-selling books was Slowing Down to the Speed of Life that I wrote with Richard Carlson many years ago. And I know Norwegian, for those of you who are from Norway.
Yeah.
A couple of my books are in Norwegian. So.
That's perfect. I hope a lot of people go check them out, and I hope a lot of people look in this direction. And thank you very much for being here today. And I'm sure we can have you on several times in the future too to discuss all the other exciting things that you work with. But for now, we're going to round off. So, Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you.
You too.
And I look forward to seeing you again.
Me too. All right.